The SEAL Admiral saw the shot, but he never expected the lieutenant beside her to vanish from the footage. Mya Hawkin had never liked the silence of dawn, yet here she stood alone on the high ridge above the desert training grounds, listening to it press against her ribs like a quiet interrogation. The wind tasted of dust and metal, dry and unforgiving, the kind that carried memories whether she wanted them or not. From this height, Naval Base Coronado looked almost peaceful. Rows of concrete buildings softened under the sun's early glow, but beyond them, the long shooting lanes, the chalked distances, the bleached wooden benches waited, the real reason she'd been summoned, and summoned personally, no less, by Admiral Jason Kestrel, the SEAL commander whose presence could tighten an entire room without a single word. Mya shifted her weight, boots grinding against the gravel. She'd spent the night convincing herself she wasn't nervous, but her pulse betrayed her now, tapping against her throat like a coded message. You know why he called you in. You know what this is about. Still, she held her posture tall, shoulders squared, chin steady. Even after all these years, after the incident, she refused to let shape her identity. She moved with an economy of motion that suggested both discipline and deeply buried exhaustion. A distant door slammed. Her breath stilled. The Admiral emerged from the stairwell behind her, coat unbuttoned, expression unreadable. He stopped beside her at the ridge, hands loose behind his back, studying the desert like it was a chessboard. Mya, he said, no rank, no stiffness, just her name. That alone was enough to set her heartbeat racing again. She kept her voice steady, though the dryness in her mouth forced her to swallow twice. He didn't respond, not immediately. Kestrel always used silence as a tool, one she'd never mastered. Finally, he exhaled. I watched the footage again last night. Her chest tightened. There were dozens of recordings they could be talking about, but only one mattered. Only one had gone viral in certain circles, whispered about in sniper schools and special units, replayed with awe and confusion. The 2,800-meter shot, the one she never meant to take. The wind tugged at her sleeve, cool but sharp, like it wanted to peel her open. I didn't replay it because I doubt you, Kestrel continued. I replayed it because I still don't understand it. I watched you break down that M107 like you were carrying its bones inside your palms. He paused. And then I watched you do something no algorithm can explain. Mya inhaled slowly. The memory of that day haunted her differently than it haunted others. Everyone focused on the impossible distance, on the precision, on the calmness in her face. No one asked what it cost her. Sir, with respect. She forced her voice into the air. Why am I here? Kestrel turned his head, just enough to meet her eyes. His gaze was steady, sharp, but softened at the edges by something she couldn't name, because the shot wasn't the extraordinary part. He said quietly, you were. A flicker of heat wound through her chest, confusion, pride, and something darker, something she tried to bury whenever it surfaced. Admiration felt dangerous, familiarity even more so. He nodded toward the desert. We're heading down to the range. I want to watch you strip the M107 again. Mya's jaw tightened, not because she feared performing, but because he needed to watch, because he wanted to see the moment where her cursed, unshakable hands did something they were never trained to do. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her body was frozen between obedience and a memory she refused to revisit. Kestrel watched her carefully. If you're not ready, I'm ready, she cut in. Too quickly, too sharply. Another breeze blew over the ridge, carrying the faint metallic scent of gun oil from the range below. Mya felt the air shift around her, felt the world tilt just slightly as if nudging her forward. Good, Kestrel said, because what comes next, it's bigger than the shot. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze squarely. What comes next, sir? He hesitated, an unusual flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. That's what we're going to find out. A cold drop, fear or anticipation, rolled down her spine. And as she followed him down the rusting metal stairs toward the range, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. The sense that her past wasn't done with her, not even close. Then she saw the rifle on the bench below, and everything inside her stopped. If you love a faceless YouTube story with suspense, emotion, and deep character arcs, stick around. This mysterious self-discovery narrative is just getting started. Part 2 will hit even harder. Like, share, and follow for more life-meaning storytelling that pulls you in and doesn't let go. The M107 waited for her like a memory she didn't want to touch. Long, dark, heavy in more ways than its physical weight. Mya stopped a few feet from the shooting bench, letting her eyes adjust to the sun glinting off the metal. The smell of gun oil, dust, and faint cordite curled into her lungs. It was familiar, too familiar, the kind of scent that lived in her bloodstream long after the mission was over. Admiral Kestrel stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable, but she felt the weight of his expectation press into the space between them. "Begin whenever you're ready," he said quietly, a simple command. But Mya felt her pulse spike, not with fear, but with the strange ache she always felt when she touched this weapon, as if some part of her body remembered a truth her mind refused to process. She slid into position, the world shrank to her breath, her hands, the cold metal waiting under her fingertips, microhook. She didn't touch the rifle, not yet. Her hands hovered over it like it might confess something if she pressed too hard. Kestrel watched her with clinical stillness, no judgment, no impatience, only observation. That unsettled her more than any pressure he could have applied. Finally, she exhaled and placed her palms on the weapon. Steel felt alive beneath her hands. Without thinking, without even consciously deciding, she began the sequence. Pin, latch, barrel, spring bolt, assembly. It unfolded like choreography she'd been born knowing. Her hands moved with terrifying precision, not mechanical, instinctual, but there was something more beneath the surface, something she never said out loud. It felt like remembering, not performing. "Kestrel," she said suddenly, voice barely above a whisper, "I never understood why I could do this." He stepped closer, brow tightening. "What do you mean?" She swallowed. "It's not training. It feels older." She hesitated. "Like muscle memory I didn't earn." The Admiral didn't react, not externally, but his eyes sharpened, searching her face the way an investigator studies a suspect, trying to reveal the truth beneath the words. "Continue," he murmured. She stripped the weapon in under 90 seconds, then she froze. The final piece, recoil spring, sat in her hand. She stared at it as if it were a small piece of a larger secret. She remembered, unbidden, the recoil of that impossible day, the desert heat, the wind that shouldn't have cooperated, the heartbeat stillness before she pulled the trigger, and the silence afterward, the unnatural silence that followed victory. Kestrel crouched beside the bench, examining her work. "Your tempo changed," he noted quietly. Mya looked at him, but the answer lived somewhere behind her ribs, pulsing like a bruise. "Because the last time I held this rifle, sir," her voice cracked despite her effort to steady it, "my life changed." Kestrel straightened slowly. "I want you to walk me through it, not the shot, the moment before the shot." Her throat tightened. No one had ever asked her that. "I won't force it," he added, softer now, "but understanding that moment may matter more than understanding the hit." Mya clenched the recoil spring in her palm, knuckles whitening. Before the shot, before the impossible, there was something she had never said, something she had hidden from every report, every interview, every debrief. She inhaled. "The truth is, sir," her voice dropped to a trembling whisper, "I don't think I took that shot alone." Kestrel's expression changed just barely. "What do you mean?" he asked. Mya closed her eyes because saying it aloud felt like stepping into the dark without a flashlight. "There was someone else with me," she whispered, "and I don't know who." The Admiral stared at her like she had just spoken a language no one at Coronado understood. "Mya," he said carefully, "your after-action report stated you were alone at the observation point." "That's what I wrote," she replied. "That's what the footage shows." Her fingers twitched over the disassembled rifle parts. "But that's not what I remember." Wind swept across the range, tossing dust across the concrete. The moment stretched tight and fragile, waiting to snap. "Mya," Kestrel murmured, "start from the beginning." "The real beginning," she nodded, forcing breath through her lungs. The memory wasn't distant, it hovered too close, like a shadow behind her shoulder. "It was supposed to be a routine overwatch," she began, voice steadying. "High ridge, clear line of sight, nothing unusual, microhook, but halfway up the ridge I found footprints." Kestrel's jaw tightened. "Fresh, very," she swallowed, "but they weren't in the sand when the drone sweep happened. They appeared between the sweep time and when I reached the ridge. Someone was ahead of me. Close." His brow furrowed. "Why didn't you report that?" Mya looked down. "Because the prints vanished." "What do you mean, She lifted her eyes to him. "They were there, and then the wind erased them while I was looking at them." It felt wrong. Kestrel didn't interrupt. She paused, fingers brushing the cool metal of the M107 barrel lying in front of her. "When I reached the top," she whispered, "someone was standing where I should have been." Kestrel's entire posture changed, leaning in. "Razor-focused, a silhouette," she clarified. "Hard to make out, light behind them, dust in the air. A person, but not a threat posture. They weren't pointing a weapon. They were just waiting for you." She nodded. "I didn't feel fear. That confused me more than anything. I should have drawn down, should have called it in, but I didn't." Her voice lowered. I felt like I knew them. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment, the silence crackling between them. What happened next? Her breath faltered. I blinked. She hesitated. And they were gone. Kestrel's eyes darkened with something unspoken. Mya continued, pressing the heel of her hand against her forehead as if grounding herself. I searched the ridge, checked every dip, every shadow. Nothing, not even a trace. And then, he whispered, and then I set up the rifle. Her voice trembled, but I didn't feel alone. The Admiral absorbed that quietly. He wasn't dismissing her. That scared her more than if he'd laughed. Mya, he said slowly, when you took the shot, her pulse surged. Did you feel someone touch you? She stared at him, stunned. Sir, how did you know that? Kestrel didn't blink. Because your body mechanics in the footage shift by half an inch right before the trigger pull, as if someone corrected your posture. She swallowed hard. I felt a hand on my shoulder, she whispered, light, steady, familiar, like a memory I shouldn't have. And there was no one behind you, he said. No one the cameras could see, she murmured, but I swear someone guided me. Her voice cracked. Sir, what if that perfect shot wasn't mine? Kestrel exhaled, long and slow. That, he said quietly, is exactly what I'm trying to figure out. The range felt colder now, despite the rising sun. Kestrel folded his arms, gaze locked on her as if studying not just her story, but her pulse, her breathing, the tremor she tried to hide in her hands. Mya, he said softly, you realize what you're describing doesn't match any operational record. I know. Her jaw tensed. That's why I never told anyone. He didn't interrupt, and that silence and unjudgmental steady made her chest tighten. Most officers would have shut the conversation down, blamed exhaustion, stress, memory distortion, but Kestrel wasn't most officers. What did you feel after the hand left your shoulder? He asked. She inhaled sharply. Relief, she whispered, like something inside me recognized the touch. The Admiral didn't blink. Recognize? Yes. She forced herself to meet his eyes. It felt like I'd felt it before. Years ago, maybe longer. You think you knew this person? Mya shook her head slowly. I think she hesitated, fighting the words. I think they knew me. A shadow crossed Kestrel's expression, quickly masked. He paced a slow circle around the table, his boots crunching over spent casings and gravel. Mya, I need to ask something delicate. Her pulse spiked. Ask, did anyone in your past train you unofficially before your enlistment? Her lips parted then froze. Something shifted inside her like a locked door rattling. I don't. The words stuck in her throat. I don't remember. But you hesitated. He stepped closer. Why? Her breath quickened. Because sometimes I dream of someone standing behind me, correcting my posture, guiding my hands, whispering something I can't quite hear. Someone familiar. He pressed. She closed her eyes. Yes, and you think that person was on the ridge? She opened her eyes, and they were shining with an emotion she couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or hope. I think they were, she whispered. Or something of them was. The Admiral's jaw tightened. What if, he said slowly, your mind didn't fabricate this? What if the gap isn't in your memory, but in the record? Her breath stopped. Sir, what exactly are you saying? Kestrel leaned in, lowering his voice. I'm saying your shot wasn't the only anomaly reported that day. Mya stared at him, stunned. I wasn't told of any other anomalies. You weren't cleared to know. His voice dropped. But now you need to. Kestrel pulled a folded report from his coat, setting it beside the rifle. Read the timestamp. 2 minutes before her shot. Another overwatch unit detected a silhouette on the ridge, unidentified. No thermal signature, no comms. And then Mya's stomach dropped, gone in one frame. Her breath shook. Sir, that's impossible. Kestrel's gaze hardened. So was your shot. A chill slid down her spine. What are you saying? She whispered. The Admiral held her eyes. I'm saying we're not just investigating how you took that shot. He paused, voice edged with something grave and electric. We're investigating who was up there with you. A cold wind swept across the range, and Mya suddenly realized she wasn't afraid of the truth. She was afraid she already knew it. The range felt unbearably still. The report in her hands blurred as the weight of impossible evidence settled like stone in her chest. Mya, Kestrel said calmly, whoever or whatever was on that ridge left no trace, no weight signature, no movement record apart from that single frame. She tightened her grip on the papers. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't, he agreed. Unless we're missing a part of the story. Her eyes flicked up. My story? Kestrel nodded once. Mya felt something twist deep in her stomach, an instinct older than logic, older than memory. She turned her gaze toward the horizon, heat shimmering over the dunes. A whisper of a sensation brushed her again, like someone was standing just behind her shoulder, watching, waiting, double quote, sir. She said quietly, what if the memory is there but buried? He studied her, the way a surgeon studies a fracture carefully without assumption. Buried how? I don't know, she confessed. But ever since that day, I've had flashes, lights, dust, a voice I can't recognize but somehow trust. A voice, he echoed softly. She nodded. It says one word, always the same. What word? Her mouth opened, but sound refused to leave her throat. Kestrel stepped closer, lowering his tone. Mya, you're safe. Say it. She swallowed hard. Chest tight, it says. Hawkins, Kestrel blinked. Your last name? No, her fingers trembled. Not my last name. Not the way the voice says it. How then? He asked. She stared into the distance, letting the memory wash over her. Like it's a call sign, she whispered. Not a surname. The Admiral's face went still. Call sign, not identity, not lineage. He drew a slow breath. Were you ever told anything about your early childhood? Her pulse thundered. No. My file starts at age 9. Everything before that gone, and you never questioned that? He asked softly. Of course I did. Her voice cracked. But every request for information was denied. Lost records, unrecoverable data, the same excuse every time. Kestrel's expression shifted, pity, anger, and realization all at once. Your precision, he murmured, your instincts, the way you handle weapons you were never trained on, the impossible shot, the shadow on the ridge. Mya felt the world tilting. Sir, what are you implying? Kestrel stepped directly in front of her, eyes locked to hers. I don't think the person on the ridge was guiding you, he said quietly. I think they were connected to you. Her breath stopped. Connected? How? He hesitated, and that hesitation terrified her more than any answer. Mya, he whispered, what if the person you saw wasn't a stranger? Her heart slammed against her ribs. Cold dread pooled in her stomach. Sir, she whispered, voice breaking, are you saying I knew them? Kestrel shook his head. No. He lowered his voice to a near whisper. I'm saying, they might have known you long before you ever became Mya Hawkin. The wind howled, dragging dust across the concrete, and for the first time, she felt truly afraid. Mya stared at the Admiral, her entire body locked in place. Her breath came in shallow, uneven pools as the world narrowed to a single point of pressure behind her ribs. Knew me before I became Mya Hawkin, she whispered. Kestrel nodded slowly. I don't think the shot was the beginning. I think it was the trigger. Trigger for what? Her voice trembled. For whatever was buried. Her stomach twisted painfully. A memory flickered, dust swirling in the heat. 2 sets of footprints overlapping on a training field. A hand guiding her elbow. A voice whispering her call sign Hawkin, like a promise, or a warning. How could something like that be buried? She asked. Kestrel exhaled through his nose. There are programs, Mya, ones that aren't on any official ledger. Ones even most flag officers never hear whispers of. Programs, she repeated. The word felt heavy, dangerous. Children with certain aptitudes were evaluated, trained young, before they were old enough to understand what they were being shaped into. Her pulse exploded in her ears. So are you saying I was part of that? I don't know, he answered honestly. But someone erased your history before age 9, and someone on that ridge knew you well enough to guide your hands without a word. Her throat tightened painfully. Her childhood had always felt like an unfinished sentence, something she'd never fully questioned, because trying hurt too much. Kestrel stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mya, the way you moved with the M107 today, that wasn't practice. That was muscle memory forged years ago. Her hands began to shake, not violently, just enough for her to notice. What do you want from me? She whispered. His answer was immediate. The truth. A bitter laugh escaped her sharp, cracked. Sir, I don't have the truth. I barely have pieces. That's enough, he said. Pieces can be put together.